Hey, welcome to the 32nd episode of the Coach's Locker podcast with Chris Fore. Really appreciate you being here. And today we're talking special teams, baby. My little pet. I love me some special teams. So does our guest. Fresh out of Broomfield High School in Broomfield, Colorado. Okay, special teams coordinator Chris Summers joins us today. So he wrote this really sweet article as well. I'd love for you to check out. It's called "The Season is Over. Now What? Your Off-Season Organization Guide." I like it. Check that out. But Chris sat down with me at the Glazier Clinic out here in LA a couple weeks ago. Last couple guests I met down there as well and sat down. Kind of what I did was I just went through the Glazier lineup of all the speakers and kind of picked out 3 or 4 I really liked to, sit down with and I sat through a few of Chris's clinics Friday night down at Glazier about a month ago now, I guess. And then we sat down the next day and spent about 45 minutes here talking about special teams, kind of philosophy. He does something really, really cool and unique with the two-punter system that you have to check out, and it's a small world. It's funny how that happened. I'm like, wow, I know of a few years ago I was sitting with the special teams coordinator at Humboldt State University, and we were talking some shield punt and some philosophy stuff at the American Football Coaches Association conference. I think that was it was in Nashville, okay? And we were having dinner together, and he was telling me and showing me this amazing footage of a two-punter system at the college level. And so, I don't know, a year later or so, I'd kind of been following that school. I can't remember the name of them now. But I'd been kind of following them and watching some of what they did through this friend of mine at Humboldt, Darren Arnett. And now, so I was tweeting out some of the stuff. And this guy, Chris Summers, his head coach, a guy I've known for a little while now, he saw some of that stuff and told Chris about it. So it's just kind of weird how it all came back around. Full circle, as a lot of things here in football do. But it was fun to watch that seminar on how they do a two-punter rugby style type of deal. I'd highly suggest it if you got a kid who can kick left and right, one kid kicking left, one kid kicking right. Boy, that causes a lot of confusion. So you can reach out to Coach Summers on Twitter. It's at Coach and then an underscore, C as in Charlie or Coach, and then Summers, Summers. So that's at Coach underscore C Summers. His email address is csummers680@gmail.com. He is a 19-year veteran going into his 20th year of coaching here in 2019. All of that has been in Colorado. Over his career, he's been to the state playoffs 10 times with 3 semifinal appearances and a state champion runner-up in 2016. He's also been a part of 2 league championships. Again, he's currently entering his 4th year at Broomfield High School, serving as an offensive position coach and special teams coordinator. I hope you enjoy our chat here today with Coach Summers. You are listening to the Coach's Locker podcast with Chris Fore, a place for all coaches to call home. The Coach's Locker podcast is a part of the Football Coaching Podcast Network. Please visit footballcoachingpodcast.com to hear and see our entire lineup of top football coaches coming to you every single podcast with valuable information to help you and your program. The Coach's Locker podcast with Chris Fore exists to help prepare coaches to be hired for the job of their dreams and to provide coaches with dynamite resources to become even more successful in their field. You can reach me on Twitter at Coach Fore. That's at COACHFORE. And my podcast home is at 8laces.org/podcast. That's 8laces, EIGHTLACES.org/podcast. Welcome to the Coach's Locker podcast with Chris Fore. Now, let's get after it. So, Coach Summers, we start all these podcasts with our guests with this way, just so our guests can get to know you a little bit. It's called the kickoff, the tip-off, and the first pitch. So, what was the first team you ever played on, and what do you remember from that team?
Oh, boy. Back in the day, I want to say what sticks out to me as far as what I played.
Yeah,
okay.
Team you played on. Your first team you ever remember.
I want to say freshman football year of high school. First day of practice in August. We were doing Oklahoma drill, which not a lot of people do these days for obvious reasons. Yep. And I ended up tearing cartilage in my knee that first day of practice and had to have surgery.
Oh, God.
I was out for the year.
Holy smokes. Introduction to football.
Yeah, absolutely.
Did you tear it up in that drill?
Yeah.
What position were you?
I was playing tight end / linebacker.
Oh, holy smokes.
And, first Oklahoma drill, boom, guy hit me and my knee buckled and I was out for the year.
Don't let the football haters can't hear that today. Coach, how about the last team you played on? What do you remember from that team?
Last team I played on, I just remember, it being the finality of me not playing football anymore. And you kind of look back, and to be honest with you, it was quite disappointing to me because we had a lot of talent on that team. We should have gone farther than we did, if that makes sense. So that to me was kind of a disappointing moment because I knew it was over for me. But you look back and say we could have accomplished so much more as a team, but we just didn't do it.
Yeah.
Sad story.
Well, my senior year, we were 1-9, so that might have been a little. That was not a fun way to end high school football either.
I know.
Coach, how about your main mentor in this tremendous coaching profession, or maybe any profession?
Yeah.
Who would you consider a mentor of yours, and why?
Oh, good question. I've actually been pretty fortunate. I've been to a few different high schools in Colorado, and at every high school, I've kind of had that mentor type person where I've learned the most from. When I was at Holy Family High School years ago, I learned a lot of special teams from the special teams coach there, and a lot of offensive scheme also, and that kind of molded me. But early on in my career, I had a coach that was an older guy. He coached at the college level for a number of years, and defensively, he taught me a lot of things along the way too, and that kind of molded me. Not to just be kind of a one-dimensional coach, because I had now the defensive background, offensive background, special teams background, and Coach Hubbard, the head coach I work for now, I've learned a lot of leadership techniques from him. So I like I said, I feel pretty fortunate. I've worked with some good quality coaches over the years and have learned different things from each one.
Yeah, absolutely. Coach, what's the worst mistake you ever made as a coach?
Ooh, worst mistake. Gosh, we make a lot of them, don't we?
Absolutely.
I want to say probably, boy, that is a tough one. Worst mistake, game-wise, I think what sticks out to me one year is I'm big on building rapport and relationships with kids. And I remember a few years ago there was a kid that I didn't develop that relationship that I wanted to with him, if that makes sense. Yeah. And I've always kind of looked back at that and remembered that to motivate me more to continue to build that rapport and relationships with the kid. He was a great kid. I just never was able to do
connected.
that. Yeah, never connected with him.
Did he keep playing or did he quit?
Yeah, he kept playing.
That's good.
He kept playing, but between me and him, it just was there was a disconnect there, and I've always kind of been disappointed in myself for not making that connection with the kid.
I have a similar story. There's a kid named Cody, and I thought he was a lot better football player than he did, and so I pushed him. But it was early on in in a head coach career where I pushed him more than our relationship allowed. Right? Does that make sense?
Yeah, that does.
So I wasn't close enough to push him. Yeah. I thought I was a little closer than I was, and he ended up quitting. And that's one I wish I could get back. Yeah,
and that's beyond the X's and O's right there.
Absolutely.
Those things stick out to you the most.
Yep. No, absolutely. I do regret that one. Coach, what's your greatest accomplishment? Let me back up before I ask that. You're a rare breed. You've been a defense coordinator, offensive coordinator, head coach, special teams coordinator.
Yep.
That's there's just, like I said, that's pretty rare, I think. Even more so these days, where it seems a lot of guys specialize. So you've been around the block in those terms. That's pretty cool to see.
Jack of all trades, but master of none.
That's what they call him? Yeah. So, through that, how long have you coached?
This upcoming season, 2019, will be my 20th year in Colorado high school.
Yeah, awesome. And so what do you feel is your greatest accomplishment as a coach?
I just think the longevity that I've had so far, 20 years. I know there's a lot of guys that coach for a number of seasons more, and they 30, 40 years. But right now, the longevity for me, and just continuing for myself to learn and evolve each year. Yeah. I was talking to a coach last night. We're talking about how everything's a big circle with football. The wing tee died for a number of years. Now it's coming back. Things of that nature. And I just think being able to adapt to the changing times has been big because I have that background set with all those coaching things that I've done. Just being continuously evolving, coming to the Glazier clinics, learning a lot from other coaches.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. How about your favorite vacation spot?
Favorite vacation spot? I am going to have to say, so I like the beach. I want to say Cabo's number one.
Nice.
Okay. But here in the U.S., I'm going to have to go with New Orleans because the party never stops there.
Okay. All right. I've never been there. I've been to Cabo.
Oh, you have to.
Never been to New Orleans. Coach, what's your favorite thing to do outside of coaching? Favorite hobby, or how do you like to spend your time away from the ball field?
Oh boy, that's a tough one because, as you know, us coaches, we kind of become creatures of our own habits here. And,
absolutely.
It's a continuous thing with me during the off season. I wrote an article for First Down Playbook, lining up now that it's the off season, what to do starting in January all the way up until August. And you'd be amazed at how much still needs to be done during the off season.
Absolutely.
As far as hobbies go, I just kind of like being home with the family. I love going to the movies. I'm a teacher, so I keep busy with that, and just support my kids the best that I can.
Yeah. What do you teach?
I teach business and computers.
Oh, okay.
High school level,
Seen a lot of changes there, too, with computers.
Absolutely.
Well, I saw Coach Summers. I knew he'd be speaking here at the Glazier. We're sitting in my hotel room at the Glazier Clinic in Los Angeles. And there were 3 guys I reached out to at the clinic this weekend who were speaking. I wanted to interview for podcasts. Coach Summers was one because he's talking out here in Southern California about special teams. So sat through 2 of those presentations last night. And, Coach, I loved the PAT field goal formation. I was sitting next to the guy who said, this might be worth the entire clinic because he's a head coach and he's looking for a bunch of different PAT variations. And so that was a tremendous clinic last night.
That was fun.
Yeah, I want to hit on some of the things you talked about. Since you've been the coordinators, the head coach, and now you're a special teams coordinator, I wanted to ask for the head coaches out there listening or potential head coaches. You work for a guy named Coach Hubbard. What are some of the things that your head coach, either Coach Hubbard now or head coaches you worked for in the past, what have they done to be good head coaches to inspire you as an assistant coach?
I just think the involvement with the head coach that, as a head coach he should have a hand in everything that we're doing, whether it be individuals or something that we're installing offensively, defensively, and special teams wise. I think as a head coach, if you don't have your hands in the cookie jar with everything, you're telling the kids that it's not that important, if that makes sense. Yeah. Pretty fortunate, like I said last night, working with the staff that I do at Broomfield High School. We know the importance, and we relay that message to the kids in the program. Hey, we play special teams here. This is what we do. It's important. We make it important because I've been to some programs in the past where there wasn't an importance on special teams. Mm-hmm. And you look back, like I talked about last night, like flipping the field position. Yeah. You look back on I look back on some of the programs I've been on, like, hey, we could have been a lot better and put our offense or defense in a better situation on Friday night. Yeah. So I just think overall, a head coach has to kind of have their hand in everything and know what everybody's doing, whether it be individuals, install, whatever we're doing, they have to know what's going on.
Yeah, that buy-in from the top definitely is a good reason to work for a certain guy.
Absolutely.
You used a phrase last night that sounds like we're a lot alike in this area. Not enough high school coaches are, I believe, data-driven. It seems like you use a lot of data in making your decisions on a weekly basis for special teams. Yeah.
So with for example, our PAT field goal formations that we do, we have our 2 staple plays, but then 1 week I might say to the kids, we're just going to line up in this because I want to see how the other team adjusts.
Yeah.
And we might do that for 1 or 2 weeks. And I'll, take the data from Huddle. I'll just, copy the screenshot there, and then I can put them up on my computer and kind of look how the other team's adjusting to that formation. And then usually by week 3, I'm like, okay, I have 2 weeks of data. This is how they're lining up. So that 3rd week, if this team lines up the same way those other teams have, we're going to take a shot and throw the football and try to score that 2 points.
Yeah. Do you, outside of that specific, do you do other number study data during the season, breaking down things?
It's not really that. That's probably the main piece I do. But, of course, getting on Huddle, I'm just looking for little things that, for example, on their PAT team, I'm looking for, like, what lineman is turning their shoulders and opening up a potential gap,
Yep.
So I just look for those little things, and if I find something, we'll put some type of stunt in. If I don't find something, we'll just do what we do.
Yeah. So you talked about last night, the fact that, and I think you're the only other guy I've heard say this.
Uh-oh.
Years ago, 4 or 5 years ago probably, we had a PAT blocked, okay? And as I studied, it ticked me off. I think it was the only one of the year. As I studied it, I said, why do we teach, and we've done it forever at all levels of football, we're always stepping backwards with the PAT, right?
Yep.
And so I changed it that year. We started stepping in front of the guy next to us. And not a lot of coaches teach that. I was doing a in-service for a staff, and they told me I was crazy. They're going to get knees broken. But when we moved to that, it really worked well. And the kids felt way better doing it. The first day I taught it, they said, Coach, why haven't we always done this? Because it made them more aggressive, right? That's something you teach.
Yep.
Step forward and punch. Yep. Where did you get the step forward idea on PATs?
Well,
how'd you develop that?
Well, to be honest with you, it just came to me one day. Like I said, coaching all these years, we've always done the step back, and I just felt from a sense that when you're stepping back on a PAT, you don't have a lot of balance on that foot you're stepping back, so you can get pushed back.
Absolutely.
To me, it also causes the kids' shoulders to turn to open up a gap. So I was just tinkering with it about 3 years ago. I'm like, you know what? We're going to step forward.
Yeah.
Because when you step forward, you have that opposite foot that's now planted in the ground, and you're stepping forward and punching with that foot, so you have better balance. Your shoulders stay more square, which is very important.
Yeah. Have you seen any other programs doing that out there in Colorado?
To be honest with you, I haven't.
Yeah.
I have not. Everybody's just stepping.
Yeah, I've never seen it, and like I've talked to some guys, and they think I'm crazy, but I've never had an injury on it, and I did it, I think 4 years.
Yeah. Knock on wood, we haven't had one yet. So
yeah. I really like doing that. So
well, you have to think about it in the sense, what do we teach offensive linemen to do all the time? Fire out.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So if they're stepping back, that's not firing out. You get them stepping forward. It's more of a comfort level.
Yep. And then we teach them to get, and you're also giving, I don't know, a foot, maybe half a yard, right? When we do step backwards like that. So, coming to clinics is all about getting those nuggets, right? That you're going to walk away with.
Yeah.
And one of the other things you said last night, which I really liked, was if a runner is speaking on punt returns and kick returns, if the returner is past you, disengage and then give a TD signal.
Yep.
So I loved that idea. It's something we've taught about disengaging, But what I thought was great about it when you said give a TD signal, because then it gives them something else to do. Mm-hmm. So can you talk through that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So that idea came, or our head coach at Broomfield, Coach Hubbard, actually was stressing that to the offense one day.
Yeah.
And I picked up on that, and I was like, I've never heard that before, because he was like, let's this offensive lineman, if the ball carrier's past you, we're going to disengage and signal a touchdown. Because you know how officials, they'll look in the back, see if anybody's still blocking and everything, and throw that yellow flag. So we put that in on special teams also. We made that an important thing on special teams. If the returner's past you, we're disengaging, we're just going to throw our hands up, touchdown. And unfortunately, last night I ran out of time because I talked way too much, but I wanted to show a couple clips of that. Our kids are very well versed to do that, and a couple big returns we've had the past couple of years, you'll see kids that will be running down the field with their hands up in the air. So
nice.
We do that as a whole program.
There's nothing worse than a guy, right?
Yeah.
He's like sprinting down the sidelines, no one around him. You go look from left to right at the rest of the field and see a freaking flag. Nothing worse. So I loved that little nugget. And again, I thought giving a TD signal was, I really like that, because I think it just helps to further promote that idea. Some of our officials here in Southern California, I mean, they have a hard job, but sometimes they're over officious. And I've seen in a game, not where I don't believe it was not against us, but they threw a flag on something like that. Have you ever experienced that? Where, so, like when your players are signaling touchdown, have they gotten a flag?
No.
Yeah,
not for that.
Yeah. I saw that in a game, I don't know, 2 or 3 years ago, and I thought that was the biggest bunch of bull. Yeah. We benefited. They pulled the touchdown away, which I don't think was the right decision either, but they gave them a flag for celebrating.
Yeah.
And I thought that was a bunch of bull crap.
Yeah. Knock on wood. We've been pretty solid on special teams at Broomfield. I think it was 2017. I don't think we had one, unsportsmanlike or personal foul penalty on special teams. My first year there, we had a couple, I will admit, but we kind of cleaned that up because kids started taking pride in special teams. Yeah. And so we've been pretty fortunate.
Yeah. What do you think is one of those factors you talked a lot about last night, about those, your staff and kids have a lot of buy-in? What have you done to help create that buy-in to special teams there at Broomfield?
I just think overall, and I say this as a former head coach, and our head coach does a wonderful job. As a head coach, you have to make special teams important in your program. And when it comes down from the head coach that, hey, this is important, because as I said earlier, I've been in programs where there wasn't a lot of importance put on special teams, and everybody's kind of like, I got to go out for kickoff, but when it trickles down from the head coach to the coaching staff, and then it gets down to the kids, there's this buy-in, and we have so much fun in our program doing special teams. When I was first offered the job, I told the head coach I'm pretty vanilla, and you sat in on the sessions last night. Yeah. I made it not vanilla anymore because I wanted to have fun with it too. It makes it fun for me. You know?
So did Coach Hubbard encourage you to start? We're going to get into this here. You talked about in 2016 started to tinker with the PAT.
Yeah.
Did that come from Coach Hubbard encouraging you to start thinking a little bit outside the box? Did you get bored? Talk about that transition to doing everything you're doing on PAT.
Well, I like I said, I've always been pretty vanilla with special teams, and it came a little bit of boredom, to be honest with you. Yeah. And I haven't shared this story with Coach Hubbard. I don't know if he'd remember this at all, but the first year we were together, 2016, I had mentioned to him, hey, thinking about maybe, doing some different things on PAT, maybe to get the other team to jump or, things of that nature. And he kind of chuckled at me a little bit. Uh-huh. And then a couple days later, he's like, well, why don't we try to implement some of that stuff? And then it kind of took off from there. Oh. And as I said last night, 2016, we just started tinkering with some formations here and there. And we do that to either get the other team take a timeout or to just put stress on them and to waste their practice time each week.
Yeah,
we do that. I shared last night. I had a coach come up to me last season and said we were a pain in the butt to prepare for on special teams.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, there's a school I was in our league for a little while, Apple Valley High School, who does a lot of different things on special teams, a lot of different gates, not as many as what you're doing swing gate wise, but hated playing them as a special teams coordinator because you have to go out there and now you got to waste time.
Yep.
And here's how we're going to fin this thing. And sure enough, if you don't put time in defending that gate, you're going to lose.
Yeah.
You're going to get caught with your pants down and lose a couple points.
And as I shared last night, me being a former defensive coordinator, if I saw someone doing gate on film, I got really ticked off because I knew, typical Friday game, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, we'd have to spend 10 minutes each night at practice going over how to line up on the gate. And that's 40 minutes out of the practice schedule for the week. Yeah. That's a big chunk of time when you could be doing other things like individuals and everything else, strip drills with the kids. No, we had to work on how to line up on gate.
Yeah. And it might only be for 2 or 3 plays, right? But those could be crucial.
Exactly.
So in 2017-18, you fully committed to doing what you called last night some weird things in the PAT.
Chaos. PAT chaos.
PAT chaos. Yeah, great way to put it. So talk through us here for our listeners about how many formations do you guys have for PAT?
Off the top of my head, I want to say right now 12.
Yeah. And so out of 12 formations, and I don't know if I wrote down all those last night, maybe took a picture of it. You have one called Star Wars.
Yep.
Gate, right and left. Galaga, Tetris. Love some of these names you came up with.
I'm an 80s kid.
Yeah. I was just going to say that. Coach said last night I'm an 80s kid, and I was too. So seeing these names was pretty cool. So 12 different formations. How many of those will you use in each game?
So the Star Wars and the gate right and left, there are staples. So the kids know them like the back of their hand. But then we might go into the next week and I might say, okay, hey, we're going to run Galaga this week. So I can call Star Wars or gate during the game. They know how to do it, but then we'll run Galaga one night. And kind of the purpose of that is we build off the Star Wars and gate because teams will get, the Star Wars and gate on film that they get to scout us, but then all of a sudden we break out that week in Galaga and we're in a totally different formation, hopefully to throw them off.
Yeah. Have you seen any teams that you've just really respected how they lined up against you and you could tell they were very well prepared? And talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, there's kind of 2 different ways here. So obviously us doing this the past couple of years, especially the teams in our conference, what I've noticed when we score a touchdown offensively, I've kind of noticed the body language of the defense, the other team's defense out there. It's kind of like, oh, they just scored. Now what are they going to line up in?
What are they going to give us?
And you can actually see like the kids' heads spinning from the opposing team because they know that they just can't line up for a regular PAT against us and try to block it. They have to start thinking now what we're going to do. Teams have lined up against it correctly because obviously they've seen it on film. But as I said last night, it's kind of baffled me the past couple of years. We've had this stuff on film, and we go into a game, and the other team wouldn't have a clue as to what we're doing. Just because I think maybe the other team, they don't put the importance in special teams like we do for whatever reason. But it just causes chaos and panic with the other teams.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, last night I didn't get to show a lot of film, but you would see defensively, after a PAT, it was like the Keystone Cops running around on their defense trying to figure out how they're going to line up on it.
Yeah. There's a little really cheap, easy way to get 2 points that I put in a dozen years ago where my holder will get all set up in our PAT. And then my holder will just run up like he's saying something to the center. and the defense is usually pretty relaxed, and we'll just snap it and just follow him in. And it's the easiest way I ever steal 2 points, right? And what baffles me is when you do that in week 2, 3, 4, 5, like you said, guys who never aren't prepared. Yeah. And as I've thought through that, I think that part of that's because of huddle, right? That defensive coordinator, when he breaks it all down, he's looking at just all the offensive plays. And then maybe if a lot of high schools don't have a special teams coordinator, you got all these guys doing different parts of it. And I wonder if they mislabel things, or I don't know. I just
potentially, I
think that might be why, like you said, there's maybe not a guy dedicated to special teams who's missing some of that stuff on huddle. I don't know. I'm just like, how do they not see this? This cheap play coming, or these different formations, you know?
And it puts their kids in a bad position too, because they're not prepared.
Absolutely. And so you've got these 12 different formations. I loved them. Loved seeing them last night. And then out of those 12 formations, you've got how many plays do you think?
Pretty much just the one play. Like I said, there was one I was tinkering with a sweep left or a bubble throw, but we just call it Tom Brady. Yeah. And if Brady's called, we're just throwing the football to one of the wings. Make it real simple. It's fun but simple for the kids to remember at the same time.
So out of every formation, one play.
Yep.
And then how much do you got? You talk about the defense, having to practice that stuff. How much do you have to practice putting that stuff in?
Not long at all, because we've been doing this for a few years. And like I said, Star Wars and gate right and left, there are staple plays. Yeah. So then we'll go into week and I'll say, guys, we're going to run this, because I don't want to overload the kids too much. I don't expect them to remember all 12 plays. If I would call formation number 11 one week and we haven't prepared for it, I'm not going to do that to the kids. So I'll just focus on Star Wars, gate right and left, and I'll put one in for 1 week. But I never go back and throw in a different one, if that makes sense, unless we prepared for it, Yeah. Because I could call Pac-Man out to the kids, after we haven't done it for 3 weeks, and they may not remember how to line up in that correctly. Yeah. And it just takes us a few minutes. Hey, we're going to run this formation this week. This is how we're going to line up in it. Yeah. That's all we do.
Do you work on some of that stuff in the spring and summer?
Not too much, to be honest with you. Yeah. We had an RPO. I was talking about an RPO last night that I was all excited about, and unfortunately the kid who I thought would snap and help us run this RPO ended up losing the snapping job to a different player. And great kid, he just couldn't catch and run too well. So,
Q-Bert, right?
That was Q-Bert. I called it Q-Bert. We did work on that all summer. Really excited about that one. Kids were excited about that one, but unfortunately it had to be scrapped at the time.
Yeah, it's kind of hard on a podcast to give coaches a visual. Well, you can't give them a visual off of here, but that was probably my favorite one from last night, or Hawkeye. But Q-Bert, can you talk about that? You basically got the gate off to the left, right? Yep. So you've got those 6 players off to the left. You've got a running back over there. You've got the center, the holder, and the kicker all. And then you've got a guy. How far? What position would you call him?
That'd be a wing.
Wing, yeah.
That'd be a wing.
And how far is he away from the center quarterback line?
Not too far, maybe 5 to 10 yards.
5 to 10 yards off to the right.
Yep.
And you send him in motion.
We send him in motion.
Yeah. So towards the gate. Yep.
And then once he clears the center, is when we would snap it. And then the center would take off on a dart route to the back of the end zone. That wing that was in motion would wrap around and then and replace the center. And then on the gate side here, we ran stretch left with the offensive line like we were throwing the bubble, but that was not one of the options. And then the back tight end would drag across the back of the end zone.
Yeah, that play's awesome.
So we had 3 options, 3 different people to throw that to on that play.
I think that guy in motion would get. Does he go 2 yards in the end zone or just a?
Yeah, about a yard or 2. Just replace him, kind of over top of the center right there.
That play was. I loved it. How did you come up with that?
That came from Coach Hubbard.
Okay,
he sent it to me. He found it on Twitter or something. He said, "Hey, what do you think about doing this?" And said, "I loved it.
Awesome.
Let's take a look at it.
Yeah, I really like that one. I see a lot of potential there. But you thought number 17, I think you said, right?
Yeah,
was going to be the long snapper.
Yeah.
And so you practiced it, but then he wasn't the long snapper. Man.
Didn't become the guy, unfortunately. The kid we had snapping for us did a great job. First time he ever did it. He was very reliable. Like I said, he was a great kid, but he just couldn't run very fast and he couldn't catch, so we had to scrap it.
Yeah, another formation I really liked, I saw a lot of potential in too, was circus. Can you talk to us about that one a little bit?
Yeah, so that one was kind of bizarre. We kind of repped for that. So we had two guys to the left. The wing, everybody was on the line. We had the wing as the end guy on the line of scrimmage, so he could step back to receive the pass from the quarterback. And then we had four guys over there kind of forming, kind of a quad box look, and the same thing with that wing.
Two on the line, two behind him. Yeah.
And that wing could step back and get the pass. So we had two options with the wings. Instead of running the bubble, they were just, stepping back real quick and getting a quick pass from the quarterback.
Yeah. I like that one as well. Coach, let's switch over and talk a little bit. The other session last night you did utilizing two punters in the spread rugby punt. I've taken a lot of pride in my punt statistics. We've had 3 blocked and 1 returned in 440 punts using our shield punt. My best season ever, we allowed 6 yards of punt return. And I've never seen anything better than that until last night. And I was humbled, Coach. So you guys had the last 2 seasons. You've given up negative 15 yards, something like that. 2 seasons total.
Yep.
How many yards was it?
Negative 13.
Negative 13 yards. So that's just tremendous. So congratulations. That's huge.
Thank you.
Negative 13 yards. So tell us how you got to giving up negative 13 yards in 2 years of punt.
Yep. So as I said last night, I've always taught punting system. We've run kind of the spread shield punt, if that makes sense, with the 2 receivers out there. And I was always big on directionally punting. We go red, white, and blue. Red was to the right, white is in the middle, blue. And then we've never really blocked anybody as an offensive line. Yeah. We just took off to the snap. So if I called red, offensive line would hustle down to the alley and
run through your guy,
get down to the alley as quickly as you can. So this whole rugby punt, as I shared last night, kind of evolved. That kid who had the directionally punted for us, he graduated. Fortunate for him, unfortunate for us as a program. Great kid, had a booming leg, and we couldn't find anybody to directionally punt. I couldn't find anybody, and this went on up until 4 days before our week 1 game. We didn't have anybody to punt the football, so I was sweating it.
Yeah.
So we had this one skill kid of ours that I had worked with that came out, but he just was not very consistent directionally punting. So one day he asked to try it again, and again he was very inconsistent. Ball was all over the place, and I just said to him, "Hey, what do you think about rugby punting? Let's have you roll out, kick the ball on the run." And his first punt, when I was working with him, had that kind of nice line drive, and when the ball hit the turf, it just started rolling for about 20 yards. And I'm like, oh, this might work. But I didn't know anything about rugby punting. I knew what the punter did, but I never knew how to block it or anything like that. So I looked at some stuff online, read some articles of what other people have done, and then I couldn't show the clip. I couldn't play this clip last night, unfortunately, but I get on YouTube, and the University of Wyoming, there was a clip on them doing a double tight rugby punt, and it was about a 5-minute clip, and I just kept watching it over and over, and they didn't block anybody either. They just rugby punt, rolled to the right, and kicked the ball, and everybody got down to the alley. So that's kind of how we evolved into that rugby punting system at Greenfield High School.
And so your guys are getting down the field very quick.
Very quick.
And the returners are catching it, and it sounds like the last 2 years going backwards.
Yep.
They're trying to gain ground by going backwards, and you guys are making great tackles.
Yeah, we are. So we get down there so quick that we're disrupting their returner because we're in his face right away. So we've had a lot of fair catches. A lot of guys would be looking at the football to return it, like I said, everybody's in his face, and he'd just, run away from the football.
Yeah.
A couple guys have tried to return it, but then all of a sudden it's like that, oh crap, after they return it, because they have 5 guys right on them, so they start retreating.
Yep.
And then here comes the convoy to give them that negative yard loss. So that's been pretty fun. I just, like I said, I was putting together these stats for this clinic and everything, and I was just like, wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
But again, that goes back to the head coach in our program.
Sure.
With and the other coaches that are at that program, and the buy-in of special teams is trickling down to the kids. We make it fun.
Yeah. Have you had some fumbles too from those returners?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
A few.
Yeah. You're right in his face. Yeah.
Right in his face. Showed a great clip last night of our state title game at Mile High Stadium in 2016. Our center took off, and I told the story about this kid, great kid, but he went right to the returner, and instead of hitting the guy, because the kid made a fair catch signal, he ran past him really close.
Which is what you guys coach.
Yeah. And caused the kid to, not handle the kick and caused a fumble. So that's fun. That's a game changer to me.
Absolutely.
I mean, the excitement from the kids on the sidelines and gives us an opportunity to score more points.
Score right away. Coach, what about I didn't watch your punt return session last night, but talk a little bit. We'll kind of wrap things up here. What's your philosophy? I'm seeing a lot of schools lately, maybe, I don't know if it's just out here, but they're just not doing anything for punt return. They're just letting the ball go.
Yeah.
I think it's the dumbest thing I've ever seen personally.
Yeah.
Because, like you said, with all the field turf fields out there, you guys have a lot of those in Colorado.
Yeah.
A lot of field turf, right, or whatever kind of turf. But they're giving up 20 yards on a roll, and I'm like, why don't you at least fair catch the ball?
Yeah.
If you want to be lazy or not, I've heard coaches say it's not worth the time to set up a punt return in high school because the returners are so awful. I've been a special teams coordinator 16 years. I don't think that's true. Yes, you don't get the same consistency as college. But at least fair catch it, right? It drives me crazy.
Yeah.
So talk to me about your punt return philosophy.
So punt return philosophy, up front, we have our guys. We basically do a 4-3 look. And, of course, we have to adjust to what the other team does.
Now, is that your base defense look?
No, that's not our base defense. That's just our base punt return. That's what we do. 4 linemen, 3 linebackers. We have 2 corners. I like to run out 2 returners. And we have them communicate, me, or you. And the reason I like having 2 returners, there's 2 guys back there. So, for example, if the guy does go to fair catch it, we teach our kids to be in the area, if that makes sense, in case he bobbles it or hits the turf or something like that. We have a guy down there to potentially recover it. But we just have 2 simple returns on our punt return. We go rainbow, where we just peel the linebackers to the right and they form a wall. Or we have middle, where our 3 backers just drop straight back about 20-25 yards and form a little wall to go ahead.
Yeah.
Kind of our philosophy at Broomfield is we want to average, whether it's kick return, punt return, we want to average 20-plus yards each return. And I tell the kids all the time, 2 first downs for the offense, we call it.
Awesome.
Just get 2 first downs. That's all I want you to do is get 2 first downs. So the past 2 years, we've actually averaged 21.85 yards per return.
That's a lot,
which I think is pretty good.
Yeah.
We've had some return kicks we've done for touchdowns over the past couple of years, and that's kind of been our mentality going in. We have a Peter call, of course. We call it Peter. Where our kids, Peter's yell, just get away. So we have our kids, and sometimes they don't hear it.
Yeah.
But if they hear Peter, our kids, our coach, just run to the nearest sideline. Just get out of the way.
Yeah.
And then I tell the kids all the time as returners, try to fair catch it. Of course, we want to try to get a return, but if you can't, let's fair catch it. I said, but if something crazy happens where you just don't like it at all, or you just don't feel comfortable, just get away. Just get away from it. Let it hit the ground. Get away from it. We'll play offense. That's our mentality there. So we have quite a few returns each year, where the kid doesn't feel comfortable for whatever reason. Never question them on that. I might ask them what happened. Coach, I kind of lost in the lights. I'm
Sure.
fine with that.
Sure, yeah.
Because we have a pretty solid offense at Broomfield High School.
Yeah, you do.
Just play offense.
Yeah,
that's all we have to do. So that's the mentality.
I think that's the takeaway there is you make sure those kids feel comfortable.
Yeah.
You make sure that those kids feel that freedom that you don't have to catch it, right? Otherwise, you're putting them in a bad position there.
Don't make a play unless you have to.
Yeah. And then they can feel forced into making a play and then fumble the ball away. Averaging 21 yards is a great number. And so when you look at that, some of these programs that aren't setting anything up, they don't want to put the work in or think that it's not worth it. If let's say a kick rolls 15 yards, if you would have just let that go, you've now lost 36 yards, right? And you showed that famous picture last night of the chance to score, right? So, there's programs I think they just don't understand the importance of punt return. 36-yard difference. Yeah. It's stinking huge on a football field.
Absolutely.
So, Coach, we thank you for your time. Where can guys reach out to you, maybe if they want the clinic presentation? I know you'll email it to them.
Absolutely.
How can guys reach out to you? What's the best way to do that?
Best way is to email me. My email address is csummers680@gmail.com. I had a lot of guys last night ask me for things, and I just told them simply send me an email. I had my information up last night. I'm very transparent. I'm getting old and cranky as a coach. I've been doing it for 20 years, but I know the benefit of helping other coaches too. And I like to talk football. And last night, one of the other coaches stayed behind one of the sessions, so they run kind of a funky PAT formation with 3 different options to throw where the quarterback rolls right. So he drew it up for me, and I took a picture of it. I really liked it, and I asked him, what high school are you from? I forget the name of the high school, but I said, who's your mascot at your high school? And he said, Patriot. I said, I'm going to put this in for next year. I'm going to call it Patriot.
Cool. Oh, so, there you go. Awesome.
Yeah, so I love talking to guys. I don't have all the answers. I don't know everything. But I think as coaches, if we just share our information with each other, it makes us better.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Coach Summers, thanks for joining us today on the Coach's Locker podcast. I really appreciate it.
You bet. Thanks for having me.
Hey, that wraps it up. Thank you for joining the Coach's Locker podcast with Chris Fore. Hey, hit us up on Twitter at Coach Fore, COACHFORE, 8laces.org/podcast for all of our podcasts. You can find our whole series of podcasts there, or footballcoachingpodcast.com. Thank you, Coach Summers. I really appreciate your time. Again, you can find him on Twitter at Coach_C Summers, SUMMERS. You have a tremendous day.